Have you ever found yourself, drawn to an old antique, maybe a painting with really unsettling eyes, or even just a simple piece of jewelry, and just felt, well, a presence? That little shiver down your spine that kind of whispers, maybe I should just leave that alone. It might be, I don't know, a family heirloom with way too many hush stories, or maybe a thrift store find that just seems to radiate something you can't quite put your finger on. Today, we're taking a deep dive into cursed objects, items believed to bring misfortune, harm, or even sometimes death to those who possess them or just cross their path. It's a world that's both chillingly fascinating and honestly at times surprisingly humorous in just how earnest it all is. We've pulled together some really incredible sources for this journey. J.W. Ocker's definitive book, Cursed Objects, which is fantastic. Incredible firsthand accounts from paranormal investigations shared on Reddit, some really wild stuff there. A fascinating academic paper exploring psychometry and the effect of artifacts, and, well, quite a bit more. Our mission today, to explore the captivating stories behind these items, try to understand the different ways an object can become cursed, and even delve into the science and psychology that might explain our enduring, very human fascination with them. Get ready for some surprising facts, and definitely a few aha moments that might just make you look at your own belongings a little differently. Okay, so as we step into this really intriguing realm, there's a fundamental question that kind of emerges right away. What is a cursed object, really? It feels like such a simple question, but the answer, much like the curses themselves, often feels, well, elusive and kind of multi-layered.
That's absolutely the right place to start. Yeah. J.W. Walker, in his incredibly comprehensive book, gives us a clear, multifaceted definition that really helps cut through some of that ambiguity. At its very core, a cursed object is described in lore as basically an inanimate item that actively brings misfortune, harm, or even death to its owners or anyone who comes into contact with it. It's really crucial to distinguish it from just a creepy-looking antique. A truly cursed object is supposed to have a tangible negative impact. And the lore surrounding how an object actually gets cursed is, well, it's quite varied. Sometimes it's believed that someone with powerful mystical knowledge like a witch, a shaman, an ancient priest intentionally hexed it or incanted it. Think of it like a directed act of, malevolence. Other times, an object might have just been a silent witness to a scene of immense tragedy, say a brutal battle or a horrific accident. In those cases, it sought to absorb that dark, potent energy almost like a spiritual battery, which then powers future misfortunes for anyone who interacts with it. Then there's the more unsettling idea that an object could just be inherently evil from the start all the way down to its made in China sticker. Or of course, as Ocker sort of dryly notes, it could all just be in our heads. And that right there, that's where the psychology starts to weave into the supernatural. It's also important, I think, to clarify some of the terms we often use interchangeably, because what we generally label cursed often overlaps with other paranormal categories. For instance, possessed items are believed to harbor a demonic or malevolent spirit, which makes them sentient. They can move, interact, maybe have a distinct personality.
Right, like Annabelle the doll.
Exactly. Whereas curse items, on the other hand, aren't sentient themselves. They're under some kind of magic spell or hex that's specifically designed to cause bad luck or harm. And then you have haunted items, which are thought to be inhabited by the spirit of a deceased person, often with more benign, if still, eerie intentions. The overlap really comes when a haunted or possessed object also functions as a cursed object because it brings enough genuine misfortune or harm to people. But if it simply acts spooky without causing real, tangible harm, Ocker argues it's not truly cursed. It's really about that measurable negative impact on human life.
That distinction is so important, yeah. And what strikes me listening to these categories is how these cursed objects seem to function as almost like indispensable storytelling mechanisms for tragedy in culture. It's almost like we need these narratives to process difficult events. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, you've absolutely hit on something profoundly true about human nature there.
Yes.
We have this innate, deep-seated need to find explanations for misfortune, especially when those misfortunes are particularly powerful or inexplicable or, emotionally resonant. Attributing bad luck or a whole string of tragedies or even individual deaths to an object provides a kind of narrative framework. It gives us a focal point for understanding and often for coping with things that feel utterly out of our control and maybe just too random to bear. It's a way to externalize that fear and chaos, to give a face to the unseen forces we sometimes believe are at play, making the world, just for a moment, feel a little more comprehensible, even if it's, well, terrifying.
Okay, so from the broad strokes of definition, let's maybe transition to some of the grandest and most famous cursed items. Many of which you can actually find displayed in museums, separated from us by just a thin piece of glass. These aren't just fascinating trinkets. They're historical artifacts with really chilling, often deadly reputations.
Right. When our minds turn to cursed objects under glass, the Hope diamond is almost always the first one that sparkles into view, isn't it? Its journey is, well, as dazzling as it is sinister, supposedly.
Yeah.
This magnificent blue diamond originated deep within the gem-fertile earth of India. The story goes it was initially placed in and later, quite controversially, plucked from the eye sockets of holy idols. Yeah. Then, through waves of European imperialism and mercantilism, it made its way to the Western world, adorning the crowns and regalia of royalty and aristocracy. Over centuries, it was often recut, sometimes shrinking in the process, reshaped to satisfy changing tastes or, advancements in gem cutting. Ultimately, like many of its famous counterparts, it ended up in museums where it now sits trapped under glass, much as it was once trapped beneath the Earth's mantle. The Hope Diamond, however, is hardly alone in its cursed reputation. There's a whole glittering array of other famous gems rumored to bring misfortune. You can find the legendary Koh-i-Noor and the deep red-black Prince's Ruby, which isn't actually a ruby, it's a spinel, among the British crown jewels displayed in the Tower of London. The magnificent Regent and the Sancy diamonds are treasured at the Louvre in Paris. Marie Antoinette herself famously wore both before her rather tragic end. The Delhi Purple Sapphire, which is actually a large amethyst, resides in London's Natural History Museum, protected behind multiple layers. The Star of India, a colossal sapphire, is a star attraction at the American Museum of Natural History in New York. And it even had its own adventure. It was famously stolen in 1964, though thankfully found and returned 3 months later.
Huh.
And then there's the enigmatic Black Orlov, currently held in a private collection. Each of these carries a history interwoven with both immense beauty and, allegedly, misfortune, often tracking the rise and fall of their powerful owners.
That's a staggering history of both wealth and misfortune attached to these gems. It really makes me wonder, is the diamond truly evil or hexed, or is it maybe more a reflection of the intense pressures and inherent dangers that often come with unimaginable wealth and power? It just seems like unimaginable riches often bring their own set of problems, regardless of any, supernatural influence.
That's a really sharp question, and Acker addresses it directly with the Hope Diamond. He brings a very pragmatic, almost socio-economic perspective to the legend. He suggests that, quote, rich people will always fall into weird troubles, and it's usually generational, so it's easier to blame an object than on the fact that you never got the tools to exist as a human being.
Wow, okay.
So this implies that the inherent complexities, the dangers, and often the intergenerational dysfunctions associated with immense wealth and power are frequently projected onto an external, symbolic object rather than acknowledging deeper systemic or personal issues. It's a convenient, glittering scapegoat.
From sparkling diamonds, let's go to something a little colder, a bit more mummified. Let's see the Iceman. He's a fascinating archaeological find, but one that seems to have left a pretty tragic trail for those who came too close. Almost as if his ancient rest should never have been disturbed.
Oh, Ötzi, discovered in 1991 in the Ursel Alps, is truly an unparalleled archaeological treasure. He's a 5,300-year-old naturally preserved mummy, offering incredible, unprecedented insights for anthropology, archaeology, and probably a dozen other ideologies into prehistoric life. He looks today, like a skeleton wrapped in golden brown leather with his arms and legs positioned almost as if he was flash frozen mid-stride or even mid-dance. It's quite striking. However, as lucky a find as he was for science, he proved, well, profoundly unlucky for many involved with his discovery and study. The chilling string of bad luck seemed to begin around 2004 with the death of Helmut Simon.
He was one of the hikers who found him, right?
Exactly, one of the German tourists who actually found him. Simon died at 67 during a blizzard near the very discovery site, almost as if the mountain itself demanded a replacement. Just an hour after Simon's funeral, Dieter Warneck, who led Simon's rescue team, died suddenly as a heart attack at 45, which is an uncanny coincidence, as 45 was Ötzi's approximate age at death. Yeah. The next year, archaeologist Konrad Spindler, one of the first experts to meticulously analyze Ötzi, died of complications from multiple sclerosis, a disease diagnosed not long after his in-depth analysis of the Iceman. Then came Rainer Henn, a forensic examiner of Ötzi, who died in a car crash at 64, supposedly en route to lecture about the Iceman. Kurt Fritz, a seasoned mountaineer involved in Ötzi's recovery, died in an avalanche at 52. Rainer Holtz, a filmmaker who documented the retrieval, died at 47 from a brain tumor. And the last victim, at least at the time Acker was writing, was Tom Loy, a molecular biologist who famously identified 4 different blood types on Ötzi's clothes, which dramatically changed the narrative of his death. Loy died at 63 from complications of a rare blood condition, purportedly diagnosed soon after his first examination while he was in the process of writing a book about Ötzi. That's a truly intense body count, 7 deaths in a single year, all linked directly or indirectly to the Iceman.
That's quite the string of coincidences, to say the least. Just a truly disturbing pattern. It's also interesting to note that both Austria and Italy, the nations sharing the mountain where Ötzi was found, actually fought over his ownership. He now holds like a star position at the South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology in Bolzano, Italy. You can even see a lifelike reconstruction of him. One can only hope he's content with his current resting place. Okay, from ancient mummies found in ice, let's shift to a curse that truly gave story life. A curse that captivated the world and continues to intrigue us decades later. We're talking King Tut. And it all started, supposedly, with a simple mosquito bite.
Indeed. While Howard Carter's monumental discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in Egypt's Valley of the Kings back in 1922 was an unparalleled archaeological triumph, it was really the death of Lord Carnarvon that truly birthed the infamous Curse of the Pharaohs. Carnarvon, who was the aristocratic financial backer of the Big, was bitten by a mosquito in Aswan, then accidentally nicked the bite while shaving. He subsequently contracted blood poisoning and died tragically shortly thereafter. This incident, seemingly minor, was the precise catalyst for the curse narrative, which just exploded in the media. This was partly because there was already, a long-standing template for sensationalized, cursed Egyptian funeral objects, but significantly because Carnarvon had sold exclusive press rights to the Times of London, which left all the other media outlets scrambling for an angle, and Carnarvon's dramatic death provided them with a sensational new, highly marketable story. Pharaoh's Revenge. What followed was a terrifying, though often exaggerated, list of prominent figures connected to the Dig who died in quick succession, further fueling the burgeoning curse. There was the railroad magnate George J. Gold, who visited the tomb and died of pneumonia soon after. Egyptian aristocrat Ali Kamel Fahmy Bey, another early visitor, was shot and killed by his wife that same year. Carnarvon's half-brother, Aubrey Herbert, died from what some say was blood poisoning. In 1924, Archibald Douglas Reed, a radiologist who performed X-rays on Tut's sarcophagus, succumbed to a mysterious illness. And Sir Lee Stack, the Governor-General of Sudan who also visited the tomb, was controversially assassinated. These deaths, all occurring within about 7 years of the tomb's opening, quickly cemented the curse in the public imagination. The list of victims then just grew exponentially over the decades, with anyone even remotely connected finding the word curse prominently featured in their obituaries.
It's an incredibly powerful narrative of misfortune, amplified by its, celebrity connection. But there's always been one major counterargument that fundamentally challenges the entire story, hasn't there? What about Howard Carter, the man who actually opened the tomb and was arguably the most directly involved? He should have been, like, the prime target for any pharaoh's wrath.
That's the absolutely crucial detail that often gets conveniently overlooked or downplayed in the sensationalized accounts, precisely because it complicates the neat narrative of the curse. Howard Carter, the person who physically opened the sarcophagus and oversaw the entire excavation, lived almost 2 full decades after opening the tomb. He died at the ripe old age of 64 from Hodgkin's disease in London.
Wow, 2 decades.
Yeah. His own grave even bears a poignant inscription taken from Tut's wishing cup. May your spirit live, may you spend millions of years, you who love Thebes, sitting with your face to the north wind, your eyes beholding happiness. This fact significantly challenges the universal or inescapable nature of the curse, but by the time Carter passed away, the story had taken on such a life of its own, evolving to encompass anyone even vaguely connected. It became this widespread, almost mythological explanation for any and all misfortunes remotely linked to Egypt.
From ancient royalty and mummies, we move now to the legendary weapons of feudal Japan, the Muramasa swords. They embody a different, yet equally potent kind of ancient curse. They're not just sharp, they're said to be imbued with something far more sinister.
Right. The swords forged by Sengo Muramasa are perhaps the most famous examples of cursed weapons, not just in folklore, but sometimes even in, military history circles. Muramasa was an infamous 16th century Japanese swordsmith whose blades were renowned, even feared, for their superior quality, their incredible strength, and just unparalleled sharpness. They were so devastatingly effective that people simply couldn't believe they were merely products of human heating hammering, folding, and sharpening like any other sword. They demanded a supernatural explanation for their lethality. The legend truly solidified when it became widely believed that these swords were banned by none other than Shogun Ieyasu Tokugawa because he suspected they carried a curse specifically targeting his family. Ieyasu was the founder of the Tokugawa shogunate, which went on to rule Japan for roughly 250 years. While Muramasa's school of sword-making actually continued for another 2 centuries, extending his deadly reach through time, it's far more likely that Ieyasu himself, as a powerful military leader, simply used these superior blades extensively. And given their effectiveness, he was inevitably surrounded by their victims. The myth of his family's curse, however, persisted, transforming these terrifyingly efficient killing tools into something even more sinister, a weapon with a will of its own.
So the curse didn't just persist, it actually transformed, becoming a symbol of resistance against the very power it was said to afflict. That's almost a poetic inversion.
Exactly, and that's the truly fascinating part. Over centuries, the curse story evolved into this potent political parable. Muramasa's swords were no longer just instruments of misfortune. They were believed to be cursed against the Tokugawa shogunate system itself. Anti-Tokugawa activists actively sought out these legendary blades, not just for their cutting power, but to use them as powerful symbols against the ruling power. This demonstrates how belief in a curse, even if historically questionable, can be politically harnessed and become an incredibly potent tool for social and even revolutionary change. It's a compelling example of folklore intersecting directly with real-world power struggles and cultural identity. #tag Maori Taonga and the violation of tapu.
Sometimes the curse is deeply tied to cultural beliefs and respect, rather than, say, a specific individual's hex or a history of violence. This is beautifully illustrated by the Maori concept of tapu, where reverence for objects is absolutely paramount.
Right. Within Maori culture, tapu is a profound and intricate system of sacredness, prohibitions, and spiritual respect. It's not just a set of rules. It governs how people interact with objects, with places, and even with other individuals, emphasizing a deep spiritual connection and reciprocal respect. When tapu is violated, it's believed to have significant, often negative consequences. Not necessarily a curse in the Western sense, but a disruption of spiritual balance that can lead to misfortune. We see a modern reflection of this, or at least how such events are interpreted, at the Te Papa Museum in New Zealand, which houses a vast collection of Maori artifacts, or taonga.
Yeah.
In 2015, the museum discovered that many items on display had been damaged by visitors touching them, which is a direct violation of the tapu associated with these sacred artifacts.
Oh.
Yeah. The very next year, fire sprinklers malfunctioned unexpectedly, damaging precious holdings. Later that same year, a powerful earthquake rocked the facility and its collections, causing further damage. And then in 2018, staff found a harmful species of mold contracting the museum's impressive whalebone collection. Now, while these incidents could certainly be seen as, normal challenges faced by any large institution, maintenance issues, natural disasters, biological contaminations, for a collection that is so profoundly intertwined with a spiritual system like tapu, these misfortunes are often interpreted through the lens of traditional beliefs. They highlight the ongoing importance of respecting the sacredness of objects and the potential risks when those deeply held cultural boundaries are transgressed, whether intentionally or not. It's a powerful reminder that not all curses fit a neat Western definition.
Okay, so we've explored the grand, ancient curses, often locked away or displayed for public viewing. But what about curses that are literally set in stone, embedded in the very landscape around us, guarding secrets and issuing warnings for eternity? From glittering treasures, we delve now into the solemn grounds of cemeteries and the ancient weight of stone.
The Birketorp runestone in Sweden is a truly imposing sight, a real relic from a distant past. Standing a dramatic 14 feet tall and dating back over 1,500 years, this Proto-Norse runestone features a truly dramatic curse carved right into its ancient flanks. Unlike the sort of gentle warnings often found on other Nordic runestones, which might, threaten to turn disrespecters into warlocks or something, Björketorp's inscription is far more severe. It essentially declares it's not taking crap from anyone, promising eternal suffering and a violent end for anyone who dares to disturb it. It's quite forceful.
What?
What's particularly fascinating, and adds to its mystique, is the connection to the Stenthofen runestone, located about 35 miles away. This oblong stone bears almost the exact same curse, inscribed in the identical ancient runic language. It was discovered face down and surrounded by 5 other stones in what might have been a pentagram formation, suggesting an ancient, powerful arrangement specifically intended to ward off evil.
A proto-meme.
Kind of, yeah. It suggests the curse was almost like an ancient viral message, a common, powerful warning spread far and wide across the region to protect sacred sites or ward off malevolent forces. Today, the Stenthofen runestone is also found in Blaken County at a church in Salzburg, a holy house surrounding a hellish curse, which creates a really striking juxtaposition.
Cemeteries are, of course, just ripe for these kinds of legends. They're places where grief and mystery intertwine, and two statues in particular really stand out as embodying this eerie intersection of art, remembrance, and alleged misfortune.
Absolutely. First, we have the Black Angel in Oakland Cemetery, Iowa City. This statue began its life as an 8-foot-tall, shimmering bronze memorial, commissioned by Teresa Feldevert for her young son and her dear husband. But over time, it transformed, becoming this blackened horror with a deathly curse attached to it. Standing 8.5 feet tall on a 13-foot pedestal, it depicts a winged woman with her head tilted, face perpetually in shadow, framed by these massive asymmetrical wings. Her features are described as clay-like, giving her an unnervingly mournful and ancient appearance, almost like something out of a, I don't know, a dark Tim Burton film.
Yeah, I can picture it.
Teresa herself was eventually laid to rest beneath it. Its spooky, almost intimidating appearance, perhaps unintentionally, enhances its role in memorializing the dead, ensuring generations will talk about it and its alleged power to turn black anyone who touches it or cause misfortune if you kiss it. Then there's the Bronze Lady in Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, New York, also known as recueillement, which means contemplation. This statue was created for General Samuel Russell Thomas, a Civil War veteran and industrialist. Its unusual placement is really key to its eerie reputation. It's squeezed between two towering pine trees and faces his large square mausoleum, as if she's not there to be admired by us, but to intensely look, maybe to guard, or perhaps perpetually wait for someone to walk through those green bronze doors.
Yeah.
This creates an unintentionally eerie effect, inspiring local legends of her eyes following you or even weeping at night. No doubt, this atmosphere is amplified by the fame of Sleepy Hollow itself, a place Washington Irving famously described as abounding with local tales, haunted spots, and twilight superstitions. #tag Kiski, the bloodthirsty gravestone of Carl Pruitt.
Okay, this one is truly chilling. A grave that's not just a passive memorial, but allegedly an active agent of vengeance. It's not just a statue that looks cursed. It's a monument with a truly disturbing supposed body count.
Yeah, the gravestone of Carl Pruitt, located in a cemetery in southern Indiana, is, according to local lore, absolutely bloodthirsty. It's credited with causing the deaths of 5 people, each tragically strangled by chains. The story begins back in 1938 when Carl Pruitt, a carpenter, reportedly discovered his wife with another man flew into a rage and attacked her. The lore then says he died shortly after by a venomous snake bite. But his malevolent legacy truly began with his gravestone. The illustrative examples of its vengeful nature are horrifyingly specific. A farmer, passing by the cemetery in his horse-drawn cart, dared to shoot at the headstone, mocking his legend.
Oh boy.
His horses immediately bolted, pitching him over the front of the cart where he died, found with the trace chain of the harness wrapped tightly around his throat. The stone itself, miraculously, remained untouched. Later, 2 police officers investigated the growing legend. One mocked the story, loudly declaring it nonsense. Upon leaving, they were reportedly chased by a mysterious light that panicked the driver. He swerved violently, crashed between 2 posts, and was found dead, strangled by a chain connecting the posts.
Oh my God.
The final, most direct death involved a man so fed up with the cursed object's reputation that he took a hammer and chisel to it, determined to destroy it. Locals found him dead with the graveyard gate chain wrapped menacingly around his neck, the stone still pristine and unmarked.
That's a truly terrifying story, almost a primal fairy tale warning. But for someone looking for a more rational explanation, what might be at play here besides the literal bloodthirsty gravestone? How do these kinds of legends take such a firm hold?
That's a crucial question. On one hand, the chilling moral is clear in the lore. Don't disrespect the gravestones of angry killers. It's a very primal warning against disturbing the vengeful dead. On the other hand, from a psychological perspective, these stories often thrive on things like confirmation bias and the sheer power of narrative. When a community believes a grave is cursed, any subsequent unfortunate accident involving chains in the vicinity can easily be attributed to the gravestone, reinforcing the legend. The specifics of the deaths, while gruesome, could be seen as tragic coincidences interpreted through a pre-existing lens of fear. The story itself becomes this powerful deterrent whether the curse is, real or not.
From local legends and quiet cemeteries to one of the most famous literary figures in history, William Shakespeare. Even the Bard of Avon apparently used the power of a curse to ensure his final rest would be undisturbed.
Absolutely. William Shakespeare, a master of crafting curses and dramatic omens in his plays, made sure his own grave carried a very direct warning. Inscribed on his grave in Holy Trinity Church, Stratford-upon-Avon, is that famous curse warning against disturbing his bones. Good friend, for Jesus' sake forbear, to dig the dust enclosed here. Blessed be the man that spares the stones, and cursed be he that moves my bones. And this curse is taken so seriously that during a major 2008 restoration of the burial site and the church, the team overseeing the project had to explicitly assure the public that they would not disturb his remains, taking every conceivable precaution to minimize disruption to his final resting place.
Wow, they really respected it.
They really did. Compounding the mystery and adding another layer of macabre folklore, it has long been rumored that Shakespeare's skull is actually no longer with the rest of him, supposedly missing from the grave. This rumor, of course, plays directly into that indelible scene in Hamlet where the Danish prince contemplates the skull of poor Yorick, adding this layer of metatextual eeriness to the grave's already potent legend. It's almost as if the bard's own works feed into the perception of his final resting place. And this practice of cursing goes beyond gravestones, by the way. There's a broader historical context of book cursing designed to protect precious manuscripts. Auker's book mentions an 1800s German example with lines starting in Latin and ending in German, designed to protect the work from theft or damage. Historically, the serious effects threatened by book curses included things like roasting in a frying pan, contracting fatal illness, drowning, being torn apart by pigs, and suffering death and damnation.
Good grief.
Yeah, these are capital punishments, often quite vividly described, all to protect the precious written word from being stolen or defaced. Hashtag Technoshagi, the cursed pillar of Prague.
From individual graves to an entire city's landmark, some curses aren't just whispered legends, but are woven into the very fabric of urban history and architecture, supposedly affecting a whole population.
Right. In Prague's stunning Old Town Square stands the magnificent astronomical clock, or orloj, a true medieval marvel. While admired by countless tourists today for its intricate craftsmanship and moving figures, its history is steeped in a dark and vengeful legend. The popular story goes that the clockmaker, Hannes Carolinum, though historical records actually credit Mikuláš of Kadaj and Jan Schindel with its earlier creation and improvements, was so skilled that city leaders, consumed by a fear that he would replicate the masterpiece for another city, had his eyes brutally gouged out.
Oh, horrible.
Yeah. In a horrific act of retaliation, the blinded clockmaker, using his last breaths, supposedly sabotaged the clock, cursed it, and by extension, the entire city of Prague, to suffer whenever the clock fell silent. The curse's focal point eventually became this single, enigmatic stone pillar. In 1878, a freakish tornado reportedly ripped through the lower market, destroying everything in its path but leaving only this solitary stone pillar standing. This remnant was then immediately interpreted as the physical manifestation of the clockmaker's curse. Other variations of the lore suggest it was a preacher's curse against the city's marketplace, or even a slave's voodoo curse against a slave market that supposedly once stood on that very spot.
Right.
One particularly vivid variation of the preacher's curse involved him swearing the market would be destroyed by a furious wind from the Almighty, leaving only the pillar he stood by, drawing a dramatic parallel to the biblical Samson story.
Wow.
The curse even has a chillingly modern twist. Lore suggests that the brutal Nazi occupation of Prague, which began in 1939, occurred because the clock had mysteriously stopped working for a period just beforehand. Adolf Hitler himself is said to have ogled the orloj during his visit, marveling at his stolen treasure, almost confirming its malevolent power in the eyes of locals. Today, after a meticulous 2018 restoration that returned it to its original medieval state with wooden gears and authentic colors, the orloj now sports modern anti-bird netting and ledge spikes. You truly can't be too careful with a giant, complex, and potentially cursed clock that watches over a city.
Okay, so not all cursed objects are grand and ancient, guarded by history, or displayed in museums, far removed from our daily lives. Sometimes the most terrifying ones are the most mundane, the ones you might find right in your own home, hiding in plain sight in your attic or basement, maybe in a dusty box. These are the items that make the familiar suddenly feel deeply, deeply uncanny.
Yeah, this relatively recent urban legend, which emerged dramatically in the 1980s, surrounds a widely mass-produced series of paintings from the 1950s to 70s. These paintings, often depicting a teary, forlorn boy, were created by artists like Bruno Matteo and Anna Zinkhuizen, frequently under pseudonyms like Giovanni Bragolin or François Seville, making their origins somewhat elusive and maybe adding to the mystery. The story's genesis is quite dramatic and very British tabloid. On September 4, 1985, The Sun, a major British newspaper, published this sensational article titled Blazing Curse of the Crying Boy. It recounted the tragedy of the Hall family, whose house was completely gutted by flames. Yet amid the ashes and destruction, one perplexing item remained utterly unscathed: a cheap, mass-produced department store painting of a teary boy. What truly fanned the flames of the legend, turning it into a national phenomenon, was a quote from a fireman at the scene. He asserted, quite chillingly, that these mass-produced paintings always seem to survive house fires, claiming his department alone had amassed some 50 examples over a decade.
50. Wow.
Yeah. This fireman's anecdotal claim, amplified by the media, quickly led to three horrifying ideas circulating like wildfire. First, that these generic paintings had been miraculously surviving fires for more than a decade. Second, that houses containing these paintings seemed to be disproportionately prone to fire. And third, and perhaps most unsettling, that the incendiary, malevolent powers of the portrait weren't limited to an original piece, but could somehow be transferred through mere copies.
That's terrifying in a mass-produced world.
Exactly. In a world increasingly saturated with mass-marketed goods, this idea was particularly terrifying. The takeaway, at least according to The Sun, was clear and stark. Every print of the crying boy was indeed cursed, a tiny fire demon waiting to ignite.
That's a powerful illustration of how the media, combined with an unsettling coincidence, can truly manufacture a memorable and pervasive curse, transforming innocuous household decor into something genuinely feared.
It absolutely is. The story held such incredible sway over the public imagination that a quarter-century later, in 2010, a BBC show comedian, Steve Punt, even conducted a televised test specifically to debunk it. He acquired a copy of The Crying Child and, live on camera, attempted to burn it. Remarkably, the painting didn't burn completely. The fire merely scorched one corner, leaving the central image of the crying boy largely intact.
Oh, that probably didn't help debunk it.
Not really. For many viewers, this only served to further reinforce the legend, even in an attempt to prove it false. It really shows how deeply these narratives can embed themselves. Hashtag B, the Baleroy chair of death.
From paintings that resist fire, we move to a piece of furniture that supposedly invites death. This is an item that turns the mundane act of sitting into a potentially fatal decision, transforming comfort into a chilling hazard.
Right, the Baleroy chair of death. It's described as a 200-year-old blue upholstered wing chair, last known to be found in the Baleroy mansion in Philadelphia. Its eccentric owner, George Mead Easby, who lived in the mansion for three-quarters of a century, passionately promoted its haunted tales, claiming it had directly caused the deaths of at least 3 people who dared to sit in it. Easby's family had moved into the imposing mansion in 1926, and he enthusiastically fostered its reputation as the most haunted house in Philadelphia, or even, perhaps more ambitiously, the most haunted home in America. He claimed to have seen various ghosts within its walls and frequently witnessed poltergeist activity.
He sounds like quite a character.
Oh, very much so. According to Easby, a housekeeper who sat in the chair, despite warnings, supposedly collapsed and died just a few hours later. Subsequently, a cousin and a friend named Paul Kimmins also tragically died within weeks of sitting in it. Easby emphatically stated that none of them had believed in the chair's curse before their unfortunate ends, making their demise all the more inexplicable in his eyes. To prevent further tragedies, Easby reportedly took the dramatic step of stringing a rope across the seat, explicitly forbidding guests from sitting in it. This chair, with its dark reputation, became the most prominent and feared of the mansion's many ghastly tales.
Okay, this next one is a modern legend, so powerful it inspired films and haunted museums. But what's truly fascinating is the unexpected origin story behind the Dybbuk Box. It captured the imagination of millions, often despite or perhaps because of its mysterious beginnings.
Yeah, the Dybbuk Box is an infamous haunted wine cabinet, supposedly sold on eBay back in 2003 by a man named Kevin Mannis. This seemingly innocuous wooden box, with its mysterious contents, achieved widespread cultural impact at an astonishing speed. It inspired the 2012 horror film The Possession, became a star exhibit at Zach Bagans' wildly popular haunted museum in Las Vegas.
I have heard of that place.
Right, and it even led rapper Post Malone to publicly claim he was affected by misfortune after merely touching someone who had touched the box. Its story just spiraled into a global phenomena, weaving itself deeply into modern paranormal folklore, cited as a prime example of a terrifyingly real cursed object. However, the profound twist and the true story came in 2021 when Kevin Mannis himself admitted unequivocally that he made the whole thing up.
Get out. Seriously.
Seriously. He clarified that while Dybbukim are indeed malevolent Jewish folklore demons, they possess people, not inanimate objects, and that no such thing as a Dybbuk box existed in Jewish mythology or tradition before his elaborately crafted eBay listing. Skeptic Kenny Biddle further investigated, theorizing that the box is actually just a mid-20th century minibar, far too small to be a Jewish wine cabinet, as Manus had claimed in his fictional backstory.
The twist about Manus making it almost astounding, especially given the impact it had. What does this Dybbuk Box saga truly tell us about the sheer power of suggestion, especially when media and fervent belief amplify a story that starts as a deliberate hoax?
It perfectly illustrates, as you say, the incredible strength of the power of suggestion. This case highlights how widespread media attention and fervent, unquestioning belief can give a story a life of its own, transforming it into a self-fulfilling prophecy, even after its fictional origins are explicitly exposed. It's almost as if the collective belief created the curse. Moreover, it starkly demonstrates the significant financial gains made by others who capitalized on the narrative, people like Sam Raimi with the film, Lionsgate as the distributor, and Zach Boggins with its prominent revenue-generating display in his museum. The narrative, once unleashed, became far more powerful and certainly more profitable than its actual truth. Hashtag D. Rudolph Valentino's Cursed Ring.
From a deliberately fictional curse, we turn now to a ring that allegedly ended the lives of several Hollywood figures, entwining glamour, fame, and grim misfortune in a truly classic cursed object narrative.
Right, Rudolph Valentino. Known as the original Latin lover and one of the biggest silent film stars of the 1920s, he's tragically associated with a cursed ring. It's widely believed to have caused his sudden death at the young age of 31 from complications after surgery, and subsequently the deaths of at least 5 others who wore it or came into close contact with it. This included actress Paula Negri, who inherited it, singer Russ Colombo, who died in a bizarre shooting accident, gangster Joe Casino, who reportedly had the ring in his pocket when he was shot dead, and young actor Jack Dunn, who tragically died of a blood disease before he could portray Valentino in a biopic, supposedly after wearing the ring. It seemed to just pick off those who dared to touch it.
That's quite a list.
It is. While the legend is compelling, evidence of the ring's existence and specific identification is a bit murky. Valentino was indeed seen wearing a ring on his right pinky in the 1922 film The Young Raja, though it's hard to discern if it was his personal property or just a costume piece. A more compelling clue comes from an oil painting by Federico Beltran Masses, commissioned by Paula Negri, which prominently depicts a rectangular brown stone on her hand, symbolizing the ring's powerful connection to Valentino. Furthermore, an entry for a honey cat's eye ring specifically appeared in the catalog for Valentino's estate after his death, confirming he did own such an item.
So it likely existed.
It seems so. Today, the ring's current whereabouts are largely unknown, which only fuels further speculation. Rumors suggest it's either locked away in a safety deposit box in Los Angeles or was stolen at some point, vanishing from public view. Perhaps its absence from public circulation is for the best, given its alleged history of bringing tragedy to its wearers. Sometimes the most powerful curses are those that are simply allowed to fade into legend.
Sometimes, the most ordinary objects, precisely because of their everyday utility, become the most insidious. A piece of furniture you might rely on every day can harbor the deepest, darkest secrets, becoming a silent harbinger of doom.
Absolutely. The conjured chest, an unassuming, utterly ordinary piece of everyday furniture belonging to Jeremiah Graham in the American South, allegedly tormented Graham's descendants over the course of the next century, killing or harming as many as 16 people. This isn't some grand, imposing artifact meant for display, but a simple chest of drawers, designed for storage, which makes its supposed malevolence all the more chilling.
16 people, that's horrifying.
It is. The trail of death attributed to this chest is horrifyingly specific and spans generations. It was first moved from Graham's possession to his daughter, Catherine Winchell, in Tennessee. Soon after, Catherine died mysteriously of an illness, and her husband, John Ryan, was killed when a stage plank of a boat apparently smashed his head. Their daughter Louise died at age 10 shortly after using the chest. Their daughter-in-law, Stella Stonecipher, died within 2 years of putting her wedding clothes into its drawers. Later, relatives Mabel Lewis Whitehead, Wilbur Harlan, and their baby boy Chester all met untimely ends after interacting with or storing clothes in the chest. It seemed to have this insatiable appetite for life, particularly of those within the family line. This tragic chain of events was meticulously documented by Virginia Carey Hudson, Graham's great-great-granddaughter by marriage. She heard the chilling story as a child from her grandmother, Eliza, who had herself inherited the chest. Witnessing several relatives suffer inexplicable misfortunes and deaths, Virginia felt compelled to preserve this chilling tale, ensuring the silent killer's legacy would not be forgotten.
That's a truly disturbing pattern of deaths linked to something so commonplace. It raises an important question. Why would an ordinary chest of drawers be so deadly? And what makes it different from any other piece of furniture we use every day?
That's precisely the insidious element of cursed object lore that Ocker highlights so effectively. When an object is so ordinary and mundanely useful, like a chest of drawers, it's easily overlooked as the true source of misfortune. People will attribute deaths and tragedies to other, more obvious causes, illness, accident, just bad luck, making the true cursed nature of the item all the more dangerous, precisely because it remains in use, continuing its deadly work unnoticed, passed down from generation to generation within the family. Its very normalcy is its most terrifying weapon, hashtag tag V, the modern digital age of curses and objects.
Curses, it turns out, aren't just confined to relics or antiques. They've seamlessly woven themselves into our modern lives, even the digital ones. The nature of curses might have evolved with technology, but the underlying human fear and fascination remain just as potent as ever.
Yeah, take Gloomy Sunday, for example. It's a melancholic piano piece composed by Rezo Serres back in 1933, and it quickly earned its chilling moniker, the Hungarian Suicide Song. This deeply haunting melody became notorious for its alleged link to an alarming spike of approximately 20 suicides in Hungary and the United States in the late 1930s. Macabre stories circulated that victims referenced the song in their suicide notes were found with gramophones still playing the mournful melody, or tragically clutched crumpled sheet music in their hands. It's incredibly grim.
That's intense.
The song's grim reputation grew so pervasive that the BBC controversially banned Billie Holiday's iconic version of it during World War II. The official reason cited wasn't necessarily its direct connection to suicides, but rather its just damn depressing effect on national morale during wartime, deemed problematic for a nation needing to maintain a strong fighting spirit. The tragic irony, however, is that Serres himself, the song's composer, eventually died by suicide decades later. He reportedly believed that the song's immense, if morbid, success, which he largely refused to capitalize on by traveling to the U.S. for royalties, ultimately made him deeply unhappy, as he felt he could never write another hit like it. He remained in poverty in Budapest, playing piano in a restaurant frequented by misfits and the downtrodden, supposedly haunted by his own creation. Hashtag tags B. James Dean's Little Bastard Porsche.
From a haunting melody, we move to a tragic celebrity vehicle, one that carried its curse beyond its infamous crash, becoming a legend in its own right.
Right, James Dean's Porsche 550 Spider, famously and chillingly nicknamed Little Bastard. It's tragically infamous in Hollywood lore. It was the very car in which the charismatic star died in that fatal crash in 1955, at the absolute peak of his meteoric career. Dean had the name Little Bastard painted in cursive on its back end, and the racing number 130 on its doors and hood, just days before his fatal accident, almost as if you were tempting fate.
Yeah, that number too.
Exactly. The car's curse, however, supposedly didn't end with Dean's death. After being disassembled, parts of the vehicle reportedly continued to cause this bizarre string of accidents, injuries, and even deaths for subsequent owners or anyone who came into contact with them. For example, the engine was reportedly bought by a doctor who installed it in his own racing car, only to die in a crash during a race. The car's transmission was also involved in another crash, and even the tires reportedly failed, leading to accidents. It's a tale that really speaks to the enduring power of celebrity combined with sudden dramatic tragedy, imbuing a seemingly ordinary object with a truly dark and persistent legacy that seemed to follow its very components, piece by piece. Hashtag C. The Euro 888-888-888 mobile number.
Believe it or not, even a phone number can apparently be cursed. In an age where these digits connect us to everything, a sinister sequence of numbers can become genuinely terrifying, marking its owners for misfortune.
Yeah, it's a wild one. In Bulgaria, the mobile number 0888-888-888 gained this terrifying reputation after 3 of its owners died under highly mysterious and tragic circumstances within just a 5-year period. The first was Vladimir Grashnov, the former CEO of the Bulgarian telecom Mobitel, who died of cancer at 48 in 2001. Though no one initially blamed the number, its strange repeating sequence of 8s soon became notably ominous. The number then passed to Konstantin Dimitrov, a notorious mob boss who was gunned down in Amsterdam in 2003 at 33 during what was widely believed to be a drug smuggling trip. His mobile phone, with its cursed number, was reportedly found on him.
Okay.
Finally, Konstantin Disheliev, a real estate agent and alleged cocaine trafficker, became the 3rd victim, shot dead in Sofia in 2005, also with the number in his possession. While the urban lore suggests that the telecom company took the number out of service entirely to avoid further untimely deaths and terrible press, a simple reverse lookup today actually reveals it does have a current owner. Yeah. This individual presumably receives a high volume of prank calls, which in itself, one could argue, is a milder form of a modern curse.
Huh, true.
And this phenomenon isn't isolated to Bulgaria. Other cultures globally fear culturally specific repeating mobile numbers like 9999999 in Thailand, 444 44444 in Japan, where 4 is often associated with death, Hichiso, or 666 666 6666 in the US, illustrating a deeply ingrained human suspicion of unnaturally repeating numbers and patterns that just seem too perfect to be benign. #TechPKD, the Berserk video game cabinet.
Even arcade games, those seemingly innocent machines designed for entertainment, can enter the realm of cursed objects, preying on our love for competition and turning a fun pastime into a potentially deadly pursuit.
It's a classic arcade urban legend. The story of the Berserk arcade cabinet at Friar Tuck's Game Room in Calumet City, Illinois, is a chilling one that spread to the arcade community in the 1980s. It's said that this specific game cabinet caused the deaths of 3 players from heart attacks right there at the machine. One widely cited victim was a teenager named Jeff Daly, who reportedly died of a heart attack right at the console in 1981, having just achieved a high score of 16,660 points. Another player, Peter Brakowski, also allegedly succumbed to a heart attack in 1982 after playing the game, collapsing just moments after entering his initials on the leaderboard.
That's awful, but is it? Is it confirmed?
Well, many skeptics believe this to be an urban legend, a macabre coincidence amplified by fear and the novelty of this new, intense video game medium. The stress of high-score chasing could certainly trigger underlying conditions, but the story persists and certainly adds to the game's mystique. There's an eerily specific detail, however. Calumet City's water towers are famously painted with giant smiley faces, which bear the exact visage of Evil Otto, the game's iconic, bouncing, perpetually smiling villain who chases players mercilessly.
That is weirdly specific.
It is a strange detail that further embeds the game's dark lore into the actual local landscape. The ultimate fate of that specific Berserk cabinet after Friar Tuck's Game Room closed in 2003 remains unknown, only adding to its legend. #Shag Gerson chain emails.
And for a curse you might have personally encountered in your own inbox, we turn to the early kind of Wild West days of the internet where digital folklore really took root.
Oh yeah, the advent of the internet, particularly in its nascent stages, brought with it a new, purely digital form of curse, the chain email. These early online phenomena used a powerful combination of promises of fortune, or more often, dire threats, to compel recipients to forward messages to a designated number of friends and acquaintances, ensuring their exponential, uncontrollable spread across networks. The content ranged from promises of Microsoft paying you for every forward, to charity opportunities, to urgent-sounding account notices that were often just phishing scams.
I remember those.
Exactly. Among the most chilling and memorable were the outright supernatural curses, designed to instill genuine fear. A particularly vivid example is the Carmen Winstead ghost story chain email. It told the chilling tale of a girl who was tragically pushed down a well during a school fire drill and, from her watery grave, sought vengeance on those who didn't forward her story. The email, often riddled with grammatical errors, recounted how the girls who pushed her were later believed to have fallen into wells themselves, and Carmen's ghost would come for those who ignored her plea to send this to 10 people or Carmen will get you. The digital age had found its own way to spread ancient fears very effectively.
That brings us to a powerful point. The power of suggestion in the digital age is incredibly potent, isn't it? It only takes seconds to retweet a cursed message or forward a threatening email, and that chilling thought lingers. What if it's true?
Exactly. The psychological impact can be very real, even if the curse itself is just a story or, a digital construct. The sheer speed and reach of online communication mean that an unsettling idea or a threatening narrative can spread globally in moments, planting seeds of doubt and fear in millions of minds. When you combine that with our natural human tendency towards superstition and our innate discomfort with the unknown, these digital curses, while perhaps not supernatural, become profoundly effective tools for psychological manipulation, playing on our deepest anxieties about what might be lurking just beyond the screen.
Okay, so we've explored this vast gallery of cursed objects, from ancient diamonds to digital messages. It really compels us to ask, are these objects truly cursed by some external supernatural force, or is there something deeper at play within ourselves? Let's turn now to the science and the very human experiences that shape our understanding of the paranormal.
One of the most compelling scientific explanations for perceived curses, particularly when dealing with physical or psychological symptoms, is the nocebo effect. Coined by Walter Kennedy in a 1961 paper, it's essentially the fascinating, often dark inverse of the more widely known placebo effect. While the placebo effect describes how a belief in a remedy can actually make you feel better or improve your condition, the nocebo effect outlines how a powerful belief in harm can actually manifest that very harm.
So the opposite of placebo. Believing something bad will happen makes it happen.
In a way, yes. The core principle is quite profound and speaks volumes about the mind-body connection. If you genuinely believe that misfortune, illness, or harm will come to you because of a cursed object or a hex, your body, your mind, or a complex unconscious combination of both will find a way for that harm to happen. Whether it's through heightened anxiety leading to stress-related illness, or maybe a shift in perception that makes you notice and attribute every negative event to the curse, the power of expectation is immense. While the exact mechanisms are still subjects of scientific study, the nocebo effect is backed by considerable evidence in medical science, demonstrating the incredible, almost terrifying power of negative expectation and belief to shape our physical and psychological reality. It shows how medical science can sometimes, high-five superstition, offering a framework for how belief can manifest physical reality.
That's a powerful explanation for how belief can affect us physically. But moving from the purely psychological to something a bit more, shall we say, parapsychological, we encounter psychometry. This fascinating, almost mystical idea of reading an object's past.
Exactly. Psychometry is the reputed ability to read, reputedly magnetic, energetic, or ethereal signatures imprinted in an object, almost like an object has its own memory or soul. This concept truly emerged with the rise of spiritualism in mid-19th century America. A physician named James Rhodes Buchanan theorized about what he called a nerve aura, essentially subtle electrical vibrations from our nerves, that he believed imprints on objects through contact. Clairvoyant mediums, whom Buchanan called psychometers, could then supposedly discern this soul of objects or their energetic counterparts.
So like touching an object and getting flashes of its history.
Kind of, yeah. Think of it like an object recording its own history. Psychometrists believe they can read these energetic imprints, sometimes even experiencing events from the object's past almost like a form of sensory time travel. They describe it as tuning into an etheric signature, a subtle, energetic imprint, like a ghostly residue of past events or emotions stored within the object. This can involve both telepathy, feeling emotions or thoughts at a distance, and retrocognition, a profound sense of traveling back in time to experience the object's history. For example, psychometrist Elizabeth Denton described experiencing a kind of split awareness, where she was conscious of her current life while simultaneously telescoping through time into an object's past. Her reading of a fragment from Cicero's home in Pompeii was described not just as seeing, but experiencing it as disembodied, floating, and strikingly cinematic, feeling no real difference between her current life and her acknowledged existence in the object's past.
Wow, that's intense.
It is. One compelling modern example of this is Dr. Norman Emerson, a Toronto professor and authority on Iroquois and Huron history, who developed what he called intuitive archaeology. In 1971, he collaborated extensively with a clairvoyant named George McMullen. McMullen could apparently hold artifacts and intuitively identify their maker, their owner, and their history, sometimes even visually reconstituting fragments and accurately drawing what a complete object originally looked like. His psychometric practice also involved walking swiftly over archaeological sites and astonishingly identifying ancient village precincts, guiding archaeologists on precisely where to dig. McMullen could discern objects as hot or cold, with older items feeling colder to his touch, and he could literally feel the hands of the maker, providing profound insights into cultural contexts that purely scientific methods couldn't. Emerson, despite facing professional ridicule, rigorously tested McMullen's accuracy, stating quite definitively, "The proof is in the digging."
That truly blurs the lines between what we understand as normal human intuition and something far more extraordinary. It suggests a depth to objects beyond their physical form, almost as if they are silent witnesses that can somehow communicate their past. Sometimes, what feels absolutely undeniably paranormal, what you'd swear was a ghost or a curse actively tormenting you, has a surprisingly mundane yet utterly terrifying explanation. This Reddit story is such a stark, chilling reminder to always consider the tangible before leaping to the supernatural.
Oh, it's a classic example and deeply unsettling. One Reddit user recounted an absolutely harrowing experience living in what they described as a severely run-down apartment with literal holes in the walls. They started experiencing bizarre phenomena, seeing things out of the corners of their eyes, hearing strange sounds, feeling like the walls were subtly moving in on them. Their dog, too, would react aggressively, barking and growling furiously at seemingly empty walls. The apartment would get inexplicably cold, even in summer, leading the user to bundle up and desperately try to heat the place by opening the oven door.
Oh, no.
Yeah. They vividly recalled seeing humanoid shapes in windows and mirrors, and the floor itself would suddenly undulate beneath their feet, like slow ocean waves. Totally terrifying stuff. The reveal came one day when the dog, in a moment of frantic desperation, suddenly launched itself at a wall, then began to furiously attack the floor in a small coat closet, ripping up the carpet to expose more holes in the walls. This frenzied, almost desperate action from the animal eventually led to the discovery of severe, life-threatening carbon monoxide poisoning in the apartment.
Oh my God, carbon monoxide.
Exactly. This gas, often odorless and invisible, was slowly and silently inducing hallucinations, intense paranoia, and profound physical discomfort, all of which perfectly mimicked intense, undeniable paranormal activity. The source of the curse was not a spirit, but a silent, deadly gas leak.
This story serves as an incredibly powerful reminder to always investigate every possible rational explanation, no matter how mundane, even when the paranormal feels overwhelming and undeniably real. It's a truly chilling example of how easily our perceptions can be manipulated by unseen dangers. Hashtag tag D firsthand paranormal investigations and encounters, Reddit source. Beyond the scientific and the sometimes easily explainable, countless firsthand accounts highlight the profound, deeply personal impact of perceived paranormal activity. These stories, often shared in hushed tones online, illustrate how deeply experiences with unusual objects or locations can leave indelible marks on individuals, transforming their worldview.
Absolutely. These personal narratives are so powerful. Take the story from Reddit user, It Just Don't Like Pickles, for instance. Their family experienced increasingly escalating phenomena in a house. Things like being physically pulled, grabbed, and touched, and a shower door that would constantly open on its own, seemingly by an unseen force. They eventually learned from paranormal investigators that a ghost named Lucas, supposedly a gay man who had tragically committed suicide 75 years prior due to societal disapproval, was trapped there by a more malevolent evil entity that held other spirits captive.
Wow, that's specific.
Very specific. And the family's sanity was profoundly validated when police officers, called to investigate strange noises, themselves heard inexplicable sounds in the empty house and were visibly freaked out. The house later became a notorious haunted Airbnb, but was soon abandoned after a subsequent family fled in terror, leaving all their belongings behind. The original owner described the entire experience as a living nightmare, feeling isolated and unable to speak about it until that police confirmation provided crucial validation. Another user, Cookabitch, described walking into an old office room that had previously been a radio station playing dance music. They immediately felt this overwhelming, almost unshakable urge to dance, despite having no prior knowledge of the room's history, a vivid, compelling example of what some call residual energy or a strong, effective artifact. In that very same room, a cat ball, which is basically a motion detector toy, accidentally rolled into a locked closet and then inexplicably began activating from the very back of the closet with no physical access or way to recreate the movement by stomping on the floor. Just weird. Then, iconic things shared their terrifying Airbnb nightmare. Items mysteriously went missing or moved, like a knife found shoved under a closet door in a locked room. Lights and dials on appliances would turn on by themselves, and they even managed to catch the front door lock turning on video with no one present. The terrifying climax occurred when 3 long, distinct scratch marks mysteriously appeared on their back, immediately followed by a door violently slamming shut after they audibly questioned whatever entity was in the house. The physical manifestation left an undeniable mark.
Scratches. That's terrifying.
Yeah. Finally, Drawley87, a metal detectorist, recounted a series of unnerving experiences linked to objects they had found. These included a dog's toy moving across the floor on its own, hearing distinct footsteps in an empty room, seeing the clear apparition of a woman in a mirror after handling one of the objects they'd found, and a crucifix being violently ripped off a cabinet and launched across the room. These are not just vague, spooky occurrences. They are deeply unsettling personal experiences that profoundly challenge one's understanding of reality and often lead to a fundamental shift in belief.
What's truly fascinating here is the sheer variety of experiences and the deep, often life-altering personal impact these encounters have. They push people to believe in things they never thought possible, leaving a mark, whether physical or psychological, and fundamentally changing how individuals view the world around them. It really makes you question what you think you know. Beyond the belief and the deeply personal fear, there's a thriving, often lucrative economy that has grown up around cursed objects. These items, once sources of terror, have become commodities collected, displayed, and even actively sold to a fascinated, sometimes credulous public.
Right, the business of cursed objects is really exemplified by various museums and private collections that specifically specialize in the macabre and paranormal. Perhaps the most famous is the Warren Collection, central to Ed and Lorraine Warren's, paranormal investigation media empire. Their most infamous item, Annabelle the Doll, is kept in a tightly secured glass case representing their carefully curated image of controlled supernatural threat. Visitors often line up just to catch a glimpse, fueled by the terrifying stories surrounding her.
A huge franchise built around that.
Absolutely. Then there's the John Zappis Museum of the Paranormal, run by the Warrens' nephew. This museum has a distinct, almost overwhelming flea market aesthetic. It's described as a jumble of objects piled high, often without placards because, as Zappis maintains, the stories and histories are all in his head. It houses truly bizarre items like a cursed Nazi helmet containing actual skull and hair fragments, Bela Lugosi's cursed mirror, said to have been used for occult purposes and to have witnessed a murder, and even an original crying boy painting, all surrounded by countless dolls and other bric-a-brac. It contributes to this overwhelming, unsettling sense of the bizarre and the potentially malevolent. In stark contrast to these more traditional fear-inducing displays, the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and Occult, founded by Greg Newkirk and Dana Matthews, takes a unique, far more open and intimate approach. These self-proclaimed professional weirdos treat their objects almost like roommates or friends. They display them openly in their own living space, give them offerings, talk to them, and allow for a degree of interaction during their traveling exhibitions, almost as if they are coexisting.
That's a very different vibe.
Completely. They believe in engaging with these objects on their own terms, fostering curiosity and respect rather than purely fear, and they assess items as hot or cold based on their perceived energetic imprints. This approach stands in profound contrast to the tightly controlled and often terrifying displays of other collections.
It's a fascinating spectrum, isn't it? From tightly controlled, fear-inducing displays designed to keep the public at a distance to living alongside these objects as if they're practically family. It really shows the diverse ways we interact with the unknown and the lengths people go to, both for profit and passion, in this unique niche.
And the commercialization of cursed objects extends even further, deep into the digital realm, most notably on platforms like eBay. The author of Cursed Objects, J.W. Ocker, recounts his own personal anecdote purchasing a cursed bronze bulldog for just $11 on eBay for his book, demonstrating just how accessible and affordable these items can be for the curious or maybe the truly brave.
$11 for a curse. Bargain.
Right. A quick search on eBay for cursed objects reveals countless bizarre and varied items consistently listed for sale. You can find, for example, a cursed wooden African mask, circa 1988, allegedly from an ex-Satanist and chaos magician, explicitly linked to dark rituals and violence. There's a cursed wooden bull stand, purportedly found in the apartment of evicted Satanists, which supposedly cause people to see shadow figures, feel phantom touches, and hear disembodied voices. Other listings include a cursed pocket watch said to hold the demon spirit of a Moldavian evil nurse, a cursed Buddha head that made items disappear and caused cats to fall over, a small cursed wooden box from a suicidal grandfather, and a seemingly endless array of Dybbuk rings brooches. And, as Ocker dryly notes, there are so many dolls, a consistent and unsettling presence in the cursed marketplace.
Always the doll.
Always the dolls. This marketplace has become so established, so commercialized, that eBay's algorithms began specifically serving Ocker-targeted ads for these items, with headlines like, "Cursed items on eBay. Seriously, we have cursed items." This perfectly illustrates the full commercialization of the concept, turning misfortune, fear, and morbid curiosity into a fully marketable niche with a ready audience.
Okay, so for all the tales of doom and misfortune we've explored, it's really worth noting that some objects, despite their strange histories or maybe sinister connections, somehow manage to escape the cursed label. These items, though steeped in mystery, seem to inspire awe and curiosity rather than fear, showing that a dark past doesn't always guarantee a dark future for an object.
Yeah, let's consider the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, originally dramatically dubbed the Skull of Doom. This life-sized, incredibly intricate crystal skull was supposedly discovered in Mayan ruins by F.A. Mitchell Hedges, who boldly claimed Mayan priests used it to will death on their enemies through psychic power. His adventurous daughter, Anna Mitchell Hedges, extensively popularized this enigmatic artifact, making it a paranormal celebrity alongside icons like Stonehenge. Its dramatic origin story with its jungle expeditions and ancient mysteries even inspired the first, and perhaps less celebrated, Indiana Jones movie.
Wait, the Crystal Skull one.
That one. However, the scientific truth, meticulously uncovered through various tests and analysis of its paper trail, paints a starkly different picture. Evidence indicates that the skull is actually 19th century European in origin, likely a skillfully carved piece from Germany, and not a pre-Columbian artifact, which effectively debunks its ancient mystical claims. But here's the twist. Despite this dramatic lore being debunked and its Indiana Jones connection, the skull is known today not as the Skull of Doom, but fondly as the Skull of Love.
Really, Skull of Love.
Skull of Love. It continues to inspire immense awe and curiosity, not fear, and is still brought out for occasional exhibits by its current owner, Bill Homan, celebrated for its incredible craftsmanship rather than any malevolent power.
It's incredible how an object's narrative can shift so profoundly from sinister to sublime even after its dramatic origin story is debunked. It's a testament to how we choose to view these mysteries.
And even the most horrifying human histories, the darkest depths of depravity, don't automatically confer a curse upon an object. Take Peter Kürten, for example, infamously known as the Vampire of Düsseldorf. This notorious German serial killer confessed to a staggering 79 offenses, including multiple murders, and even drank his victims' blood. One might expect his brain to be monstrous, physically different, a tangible sign of his evil. Yet, forensic analysis revealed it to be a regular human brain, like yours and mine, defying the expectation of a physically monstrous brain. His skeleton and a notebook reportedly made of his skin are on display at the Anatomical Museum at the University of Edinburgh, and a card case made from his skin is also publicly exhibited. Yet none of these deeply disturbing relics are considered cursed.
Huh. That's surprising.
It is. Another fascinating example is the 17 miniature coffins found in a cave on Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh back in 1836. These tiny, intricately crafted coffins, each containing a small wooden effigy, sparked immediate speculation. While theories circulated they were implements of witchcraft, that idea never really took off. A far more compelling, though equally grim theory suggests they were a private memorial for the 17 victims of the infamous serial killers, William Burke and William Hare.
Ah, Birkenhair.
The very same. These body snatchers murdered people to sell their cadavers to Dr. Robert Knox for dissection. Burke himself was eventually hanged and dissected, with his skeleton and a notebook reportedly made from his skin now also on display. Despite their grim origins and undeniable association with horrific death, these miniature coffins, like Kürten's remains, have never really been imbued with a curse. Instead, they evoke this profound sense of historical tragedy and mystery.
It's a stark reminder that even the most horrifying histories don't automatically confer a curse upon an object. Sometimes a dark story is just that, a dark story. A historical record, rather than an active source of malevolence.
And finally, let's turn to the Antikythera mechanism. This astonishing 2,000-year-old computer, a complex astronomical calculator, was pulled from an ancient sunken ship off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera. Its intricate bronze gears and complex mechanism were just 1,000 years ahead of its time, completely defying the technological capabilities typically attributed to its era.
It's incredible.
It really is. Its incredible complexity and mysterious origin immediately inspired some wild, imaginative theories, none of which, notably, involved a curse. Some speculated it was evidence of time travel, perhaps accidentally dropped by a sloppy time shifter from the future. Others suggested it was an extraterrestrial artifact, left behind by benevolent, more advanced beings who visited ancient Earth. Despite all the profound mystery surrounding its creation, its precise purpose, and the identity of its brilliant maker, the Antikythera mechanism has inspired only awe, wonder, and intense scientific curiosity. Never fear or curse stories. It stands as a testament to ancient ingenuity, not ancient malevolence.
What's truly fascinating here is that despite all the mystery, the incredible origin, and the outlandish theories, this object has inspired only awe and a thirst for knowledge, not fear or superstition. It's a powerful counterpoint to the idea that the unknown must inherently be cursed. Hashtag Chag outro. Wow. We've journeyed through vast swaths of history, explored layers of folklore, and even delved into the cutting edge of psychology, all to explore objects that both captivate and, frankly, terrify us. From diamonds steeped in royal misfortune to dolls whispering from their glass cases, from ancient runestones delivering grim warnings to mobile numbers with a deadly track record, the concept of a cursed object truly touches almost every aspect of human experience. We've seen how these items, whether truly malevolent or merely perceived as such, profoundly shape our stories, our fears, and our fundamental understanding of misfortune.
Indeed. Whether a curse is a mystical hex intentionally cast by a vengeful individual, or dark energy absorbed from a scene of profound tragedy, or maybe a powerful manifestation of the nocebo effect driven by our own beliefs. These stories reveal so much about our innate human need to understand and explain the inexplicable. They are vivid reflections of our deepest fears, our most enduring superstitions, and our boundless, sometimes terrifying imagination. The enduring appeal and power of cursed objects ultimately tell us more about ourselves, our perceptions, and the stories we construct than perhaps any object itself could ever reveal. So consider this as you maybe look around your own space later. If the line between a genuinely cursed object and an object we simply believe to be cursed is so incredibly thin, what cursed objects might you have encountered or even unknowingly created through your own powerful beliefs and the stories you tell yourself without ever truly realizing it? What unseen energies might be lingering in your own attic, just waiting for a story to attach to?
That's a thought to truly keep you up at night, or at the very least make you look a little differently at the objects around you, perhaps with a newfound appreciation for both their rich histories and the incredible, sometimes dangerous, power of human belief. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.